I love taking big, bold, risky swings on players in fantasy football, but sometimes you just want the safest option. Some leagues are won on the backs of can't miss picks. And of course, we're talking about guys outside of the top tier at their position. We know the elite guys are safe. So I have created my safest draft picks list for 2026 for you. These guys may not have extremely high ceilings like other players, but they're about as relaxing as you can get in fantasy football. I am giving you players at every position with a wide variety of pick ranges. I've got 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, 1 quarterback, and 1 tight end. Let's dive in. So I am an OG Chase Brown truther. I was in the streets arguing for this man from the jump, and I've got the dynasty rosters to prove it. That is my boy. But I do recognize that my boy can never be Jahmyr Gibbs. Quite frankly, he can't even be James Cook. But you know what he can be? He can be relaxing. He can be a good time. Sans a truly awful quarterback situation for a moment last season, all it took was Joe Flacco to come in and get things back on track enough for Chase Brown. Now everyone has finally figured out that there is a certain level of peace that comes with rostering Chase Brown. So because of that, we're not exactly getting a discount on him. If you are looking for a value pick, it ain't here. You are drafting him at cost, and that's fine, right? If I am looking at FantasyPros ECR, you guys know me. I've talked about it a lot. I am taking high upside swings this season and drafting Devon Achane in that range, right? I'm taking him over Chase Brown, whereas FantasyPros ECR has Chase Brown right above Devon Achane. But if you don't want to take the risk with me and draft Achane, that is perfectly fine. I don't blame you. If you just want the safer pick, go with Brown. It's a good pick. He has been a pillar of consistency since becoming a starter. Looking at last year, once they finally didn't have to deal with Jake Browning, and nobody should have to deal with that, Brown was RB8 weeks 6 through the end of the season in half PPR. You're not getting a ton of touchdowns on the ground because those touchdowns in Cincinnati, they're going through the air. But you have very nice, safe, baked in receiving work. So that means that while he can never be a top 5 running back because he doesn't have the touchdowns, odds are very strong that he is RB12 at worst. I talked about this one in my Scott Fishbowl draft video. I took Javonte Williams when I was tilting because I got sniped on Josh Jacobs, and I hated the pick. I hated it. I hated it because I was specifically trying to build a high volatility team with a high ceiling. That was the goal. It's a giant tournament, thousands of people. I wanted the most upside humanly possible, and I was trying to take a lot of risk. I was attacking risk. And Williams just isn't a risky pick. He was RB12 in half PPR, averaging 14.1 fantasy points last season. Obviously, that season was the best of his career by far. He was finally healthy. He had a coach who actually believed in him and wanted a true 3-down back. And he was in a very low risk offense with guaranteed volume. And while he did have the heaviest usage of his career in terms of touches, it was still just 252 carries and 35 receptions. That's a very reasonable touch, and it shouldn't result in any wear and tear issues in 2026. The offense is set, quite frankly, to repeat exactly what it did last year. If anything, maybe the defense improves a little, and as a result, that would maybe add more work on the ground. But the most likely outcome is a repeat of 2025. He is an insanely safe pick that will absolutely pay off at his value. The only downside that keeps Williams from creeping into that kind of tier 2, 3 area is that he just doesn't have the receiving upside to push him into top 5 production. It's not physically possible. He would have to go the James Cook route of having a lot more carries and yardage, which theoretically is possible, right? But the offense is very pass heavy, and there's no real way around that, which is fine. It means that he quite literally cannot be a bust because the offense just moves the ball so well through the air. Goal line opportunities will exist. He's just a very safe pick. So if you followed me during the early offseason, we talked a good bit about prospects. You may know that I really did like Jacoby Lane, and I still do. And I love the fit for him in Baltimore because I don't believe in Rashad Bateman, and they need another big-bodied receiver to play off of Flowers. And the Ravens also drafted Elijah Surratt, who is a fine prospect, but we're not hearing as much camp hype about either one of these rookies as I would like to hear. We're actually hearing a lot more about Devontae Walker. And Walker has been on the team for 2 seasons now. And while year 3 breakouts are always something that I do look for, the man has had umpteenth opportunities to step up. So while this might be his time to be a starter, I do not believe this is a breakout season for him, and I do not think that he is a big threat to Zay Flowers. All of this just adds up to one very clear thing. Zay Flowers is the clear, unquestioned first look in the pass attack, and we have seen for 2 straight seasons with him having 116 targets and 118 targets on 17 games. There is a clear baseline level that he will not cross below as long as he plays a full season, and he's proven to do so. We have continued to see the decline of Mark Andrews. Isaiah likely is gone. If Lamar Jackson is healthy, this is a very safe pick. And we've got a change, an offensive coordinator to Declan Doyle, and that should be a benefit for Flowers and the entire Baltimore offense in general. Now, Flowers is rising up draft boards pretty rapidly because everyone is doing the math and saying, man, this is kind of panning out to be a big breakout season from Zay Flowers, and he's a very safe pick. Now, we would like to see an increase in touchdowns for this to become elite production. I don't know if that will happen, so a breakout into the top 5 situation, probably it's a stretch, right? But in terms of a guy who is absolutely going to pay off at his even rising ADP and is a lock for a certain amount of volume in what will be a bounce back offense, it just makes way too much sense to target him in your drafts. Now, I wanted to give you a wide receiver safe option within the range of wide receiver 20 to 36 as a safe pick. But that's a little tricky because this is an area where all the guys with injury or age concerns sit, plus the guys coming off of subpar seasons, and it also includes the guys stepping into new roles. So in picking a safe pick, you're going to have to go with me on this and hear it outright. Jameson Williams is not a safe pick from the perspective of a guaranteed weekly floor. So this is different than Chase Brown, Javonte Williams, and Zay Flowers, because Jameson is a deep threat. So theoretically, on any given week, his floor is 0, right? But he is safe overall for an entire season because he is going to be a guarantee to get a specific amount of looks in a high volume offense that actually has a stupid fantastic schedule in general, specifically the back half of the season outside of week 17. I'm not joking. I'm not exaggerating. We know that the pass game typically has, lived and died by Jared Goff being in a dome or good weather, right? Once you get him outside in bad weather, things can go sideways there. The Lions actually have the 3rd easiest strength of schedule for quarterbacks and the 7th easiest strength of schedule for wide receivers. And after their week 6 bye, they are in a dome 9 times, with 1 outside game in Miami and then 1 in Chicago in week 17. So any criticisms around Jameson Williams versus Sam Laporta should be put at ease because of the schedule. There's a guaranteed baked in level of volume that is to be had here in what is setting up to be a very potentially big season in terms of volume from Jared Goff. And do keep in mind that the Lions had an offensive play calling issue last season. So if you go back and look at the stats and you remember, you're like, man, that season was awful to begin with. I mean, yeah, he came along in the second half, but the beginning was awful. Well, if that is your concern, right, rest assured, that was specifically a play calling issue. Once they took away the play calling responsibilities from the offensive coordinator and switched over to Dan Campbell, things got much better for the offense in general. So if that was your concern the beginning of the last season, rest assured, they did definitely upgrade an offensive coordinator. And so it's going to be a less bumpy ride here. So again, safe pick, specifically giving you an option in that wide receiver 20-ish to 36-ish range where there's a whole lot of question marks and you might be looking for who would be the best option for you to pick in terms of safety overall production in that range. Now, an oldie but a goodie, and not even an oldie, guys. He's 28. He is not washed. Yes, he is going into a precarious situation because Pittsburgh's pass attack was atrocious last season. But we talked about this when I broke down the Pittsburgh backfield. Do not judge the wide receiver production last year and try to apply it to the receivers this year. The Steelers ran the 5th fewest plays last year. They were league average in scoring, and they ran the 4th fewest attempts in the league. This was not because the run game was ineffective. It is because the pass game was ineffective due to the lack of receivers, and the compensation is that Aaron Rodgers was throwing a lot to the running backs because he did not trust any of the receivers outside of DK Metcalf. Kenneth Gainwell literally had 14 less targets than DK Metcalf, and he was the team leader in receptions. That's crazy and illogical. And Warren had the 4th most receptions. So again, this offensive usage is going to change because now Michael Pittman will help shift that usage. He will serve as the reliable possession receiver with sure hands opposite of DK Metcalf's big play capabilities. So he won't have a massive ceiling, right? But he'll have a very safe floor, and he should logically have the same level of low 100s targets with good efficiency. And Pittman actually had a fantastic season last year, right up until the Daniel Jones injury. Weeks 1 through 13, Pittman was wide receiver 16 in average fantasy points per game, half PPR. All 7 of his career high touchdowns, that's crazy. Career high touchdowns, 7 were over that time period. It was Daniel Jones. All it took was Daniel Jones to help him get to a career high in touchdowns on literally 12 games. Crazy. Aaron Rodgers is more than adequate enough to keep him in the low-end wide receiver 2 range, and you're getting him for a very reasonable price. In fact, outside of his rookie season, Michael Pittman has never finished below his current ADP. Think about that. We talked about Javonte Williams. There are just some teams that are a lock for a absurd amount of pass volume, and Dallas is one of them. Now, the only downside with Dak is that you do have a spotty injury history from him. So there is that risk, right? There's no perfectly safe player because injury does exist. And the fact that we've had it multiple times with Dak is very irritating. But if you're trying to find the safest QB1 that you can draft outside of the elite tier, Dak makes the most sense from a pure volume and weapons perspective. I could make the argument for Trevor Lawrence because of his rushing baseline, or Justin Herbert because of obviously the upgrade he will have, but that's more of a bounce back rather than a historical safe lock compared to his ADP. When Dak plays a full season, you know you are getting 4,500 yards. That's a fact. It doesn't matter who's running the offense outside of those very early career years. Dak has been the surest guaranteed volume humanly possible. 4,500 yards, 30 touchdowns. He has CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens. It's easy street. The living is easy, right? It's about as easy as you can get. Not a long, drawn-out explanation here. Obviously, injuries can happen, but you know what you're getting when Dak is on the field. There is no risk that his production will change. So this one was tough because I said I'm picking guys outside of the elite tier. So I can't include Loveland or Warren because of my rankings. I have it as a 1A with Bowers and McBride, and then a 1B with Warren and Loveland. So I grouped them together, so I cannot include any of those guys in terms of Tyler Warren or Colston Loveland. So if we are looking outside of that for the actual safest pick at value, I do think it's Isaiah Likely. Hear me out. Again, I group the tight. We've talked about my strategy at tight end before. I group the top 7 tight ends as the ones to target, and then everyone after that, like you're punting and you're streaming at that point, which is perfectly fine. I love to do it, right? No issue. But everyone after that top 7 does have inherent risk at their ADP. You immediately go to Laporta, who, aside from the injury risk, is not a lock to be the second look from a receiving perspective. We talked about that with Jameson Williams. They jostle back and forth. Kittle is injured. Kelsey, age. You guys know how I feel about Dalton Kincaid. Ferguson, third look. Goddard, not a lock to maintain the job for the full season. And also, he's always incurring some kind of injury along the way. But Isaiah Likely is very likely to be the second look in this offense behind Neighbors. Dart was tight end friendly last season, and while the running backs can and will catch passes, not to the level of Gibbs, though, right? So there is work to be had here, safe work, and at a low price. So theoretically, Isaiah Likely, for the price that you have to pay, very safe pick. Thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. You can find me across all social media platforms at It's Tera Time. I am also live every Wednesday on YouTube at 8 p.m. EST, so make sure that you stop by and chat. It is always a good time. You can ask me any questions that you want. You can also subscribe to my Substack if you want to support me another way. And if you are looking for new fantasy football tools in 2026, look at Player Profiler. You can use my promo code TERA for 25% off at Player Profiler.